right, guys, we are going to get started. Thank you all for coming out. I hope you're all enjoying the conference so far. Today we have with us Angela Landis. She is a veteran homeschooler. She's been homeschooling. She homeschooled for over 20 years, and her own children and hundreds of other kids through co-ops and other programs. She was the founder and director for 14 years of Fireside Academy, which was operating for quite a long time, and then it had to close down during COVID. So in her post-Fireside life, she has turned to higher education and is now an admissions counselor for her alma mater, Cedar Crest College in Allentown. In addition to her regular recruiting duties, she acts as a homeschooling liaison and helping homeschoolers in the application process and advocating with local colleges to understand homeschooled students within state laws. So she still continues to work with homeschoolers as a Wilson certified dyslexia tutor and a college prep specialist. So let's welcome Angela.
Thank you, Danica, and thank you all for coming today. I want to preface this, and I have been there and done that, and I've also given I've given these presentations quite a bit, and one thing I want to tell all of you is deep breath, you can do it, okay? It can be really daunting when you're looking at the big picture. I'm going to come at this presentation in more of a general information session. I'm going to give some specifics, but there are a lot of misconceptions about the transition from homeschooling to college as far as the best ways to do it. I'm going to give you information as to, at least within Pennsylvania, some of the best information. So do we have anyone who is not from Pennsylvania here? Okay, that makes it really easy. Different states have different laws, even different school districts have different laws. So I'm going to try to do a Pennsylvania-focused presentation for all of you. I'm going to try to be quick so that we have some time at the end for general questions as well. Okay, so laying the groundwork. This is where, and again, I'm fine if anybody wants to take pictures of the slides, feel free to do that. But laying the groundwork is the critical thing that in homeschooling a high schooler. I always recommend to parents that you want to try to think in a way that you're creating a 4-year plan. And I know that's really hard because honestly, when I was homeschooling, there were days at like 3 o'clock, I still didn't know what dinner would be. But we're gonna have, as far as their academics, you wanna try to have this 4-year plan so that you're ensuring that they are getting all the courses in that they need regardless of both the state and what colleges are expected. So, high school curriculum. Oh, and I do want to preface, you're going to see Cedar Crest listed a lot here. The reason I'm saying Cedar Crest is so that I can give you some specific data, numbers, scholarship examples from a place that I know. And it's to show you that you have to do your own research because it's different at every single college. But I can speak expertly on this one because I do it all the time. So we're going to do it that way. All right, so basic requirements for college entrance. You will need 4 credits of English, 3 credits of math. Each of those math, you have to have an algebra, 1 at least, and geometry, as well as a 3rd math minimum. Now, some students might start algebra earlier than high school, and that's fine. You need to do 3 math during high school. Does that make sense? So if you start algebra in 8th grade, then you know you're going to probably end up with a kid doing algebra 2 and pre-calculus throughout high school. You're going to have 3 credits of science, including a lab. So either a lab in biology or chemistry. But you want to have upper level of high school level science, all right? Now I know there's some fabulous curriculums where we can start biology and chemistry in 3rd grade and 5th. It has to be a high school level science to count for tracking it forward. You're going to want 3 credits of social studies. Social studies can be American history, world history, sociology, government, psychology. There's a far variety of what you can choose from, but those are it has to be 3 social science courses. You're going to want 2 credits of arts or humanities. Now that can be fine art, like applied art and music, drawing, painting, playing an instrument, something of that nature. Or it can also be like an art history, a foreign languages fall under the humanities, philosophy falls under humanities, so you can keep those kind of classes in mind as well. If I'm talking too fast, tell me. Did you have a question?
Yes, what is the credit? Like, is that a year or semester?
Okay, yeah, oh, good, no, good question. So, within a high school rating system, a full credit is considered a 180 sessions is kind of how they'll say hours, but we all know, I had kids, if they finished in 40 minutes, I was not making them do another 20 minutes and making up a lesson, right? So we're gonna say 180 is a full credit, but there's also can be half credit courses, they can be 90. Okay, so sometimes maybe they'll do 90 credits of an art course in the fall and 90 credits of musical theater in the spring. And that all will count, you can put them together as a full credit. All right, does everybody get that? And thank you for that question. I'm making assumptions here, I'm sorry. And then 2 credits of a foreign language. Now, I'm gonna preface this. This is a requirement for most high school diploma programs, that there is 2 credits of a foreign language. And in most high schools, they require students to have 2 credits. Some colleges require that, and it has to be the same foreign language. I need to qualify that. But some colleges will require 2 semesters, some do not look at that. Okay, so yes?
Does ASL typically?
It depends on depends on your school district. Okay, so I've heard of a couple school districts in PA that will accept a full ASL class as their credit. There are others that will not. So again, it's your diploma program that you look at, your school district. Colleges in general really, they lean more towards like, okay, take 2 years of Spanish and do ASL 2 bonus, right? But they don't, because it is very difficult with ASL. There aren't the structured grammar and all those things that you're following, even though it's very, very difficult, it's hard for them to compare apples and oranges. So it is, I would just check with your school district and find out the way that they're running things. Okay, so I'm gonna throw this out there, and it was actually funny, it was something I read on one of the homeschoolers' Facebook pages that I'm on today. Someone was talking about, oh, can I just print out a diploma and it'll be good? And there are some challenges. You can do that. Definitely, there's no challenge, but there are some things where you don't know that could affect your kids, all right? So a high school diploma program, are you all familiar with high school diploma programs? Okay, so the 2 big ones in Pennsylvania are PA homeschoolers have one, and Mason-Dixon homeschoolers. I know there had been some smaller ones. I haven't really kept track of them since COVID, so I'm not sure what's out there. The big key, it's not that any of them are better or worse, you just need to make sure that they're accredited by the state of Pennsylvania. All right, so the reason high school diplomas are important is the concept of third-party verification. Now, as a parent, but also as a teacher who taught lots of homeschool kids over the years, you always knew the kid who absolutely had no clue what was going on, but had absolutely every answer right in their homework because their mom had bought the teacher's guide and they just copied the answers down, right? And that's the concept. It's unfortunate, but there is a lingering misconception about homeschoolers is that their children aren't being educated correctly, or that there's no way to verify. I know for myself, the only fudging that I did was the hours. If they got the full lesson done for the day, I'm not counting those minutes. okay? Because usually they were over the 180 anyway when we talked about the research and things when they did papers. But there are those who might. So we as a body as a community have to be cautious on what the way that we're doing things for best for our students. So I could have gone and done the paper, or just done a paper and not gone through. The problem comes in, and this is in students that I'm finding on my other end in higher ed, we offer huge merit scholarships at my school. They are based on the cumulative GPA of freshman, sophomore, and junior year. Now, without having an outside source, either a school or a diploma program to verify that GPA number, these schools are unwilling to award those merit scholarships. Now at my school, that could be anywhere from $21,000 to $25,000 a year. So you could miss out on $100,000 in scholarship money for your kid because it wasn't verified through a third party. It's quite easy with the diploma programs when you, I know you all have evaluators in Pennsylvania, you're all very familiar with that as it is. You will then, just as your kids get older, switch to an evaluator that is like Mason-Dixon or Pennsylvania Homeschooler certified. And then they will help you with processing all the documentation, getting your, when they do your evaluation, they're doing it for that as well as for the curriculum, for the homeschool program, okay? So it's not that you're having to do anything extra. I even waited with my kids. I had my annual evaluation using the Mason-Dixon, telling them that this is what I was going to use the Mason-Dixon, but I didn't file it every year. I waited till their junior year and sent it all in then, so I wasn't having to pay it 3 times for them to add stuff to the account. So it isn't as hard as it sounds, but in a lot of ways it protects you. It also protects students. Now I have heard there might be some changes, but for college athletics, for NCAA eligibility, having everything done through that is proving your age and that you've done the appropriate coursework that you need to be considered eligible for college. And the military. There are some students that I've heard, now this has not been as common, but there used to be a lot of issues getting into the military without an official high school diploma from somewhere. And you can get into like basic military level, but if you want to go in and do like officer school or like I know my son, we found out he wanted to do the Defense Language Institute when he went in, and it was a good thing we did it because they asked for a copy of his diploma through a program. Credit for 7th and 8th grade students. So with diploma programs as well, as I just mentioned, like say you have a student who is taking courses in 7th and 8th grade, like maybe they're taking an art class and they just want to get that out of the way, or maybe they've done algebra as an 8th grader, right, Algebra 1. You can get documentation and credit for that and it will carry over for your high school credit in that way without having to hold off on all of those classes later. Okay, so the college admissions process. There usually are 4 steps to the college admissions process. The first one is transcripts. Second, what did I put? Okay, essay, I didn't know the order I did it. Third are teacher recommendations, and 4th are standardized tests. All right, so let's talk about the transcripts. That's a QR code. If you would like to scan that, that's a copy of a printable that you can access and then print out for yourself later. This is a basic transcript for yourself that you can start with if you're going to be just, as I said, you are planning 4 years ahead. So you want to try to think, all right, do I have my four English classes, my 3 sciences? If any of you are participating in co-ops or outside classes, it's a good way for you to track and make sure that you're getting in everything that you need to in a time that works. I have had several clients that they come to me at the, halfway through their junior year, they want to think about it, and then suddenly they're finding their child has to take biology and chemistry their senior year together because they didn't plan. So I always say preparation, you can change things, but having an idea of how you're going to run through things. You want to make sure that your child has had often algebra 2 at least concurrently when they're taking chemistry, because a lot of the formulas that you need in chemistry are based off of a math level of mid-algebra 2, right? So that they're not going to struggle in a way that's going to cause them to fail. Having this transcript, there is a separate form that whichever diploma program you pick will have you use and fill out at that time, but this is for your personal planning, okay? I don't put the others up because I'm not advocating for one or the other. When you do your research, you can get that from them. Yes?
Question. If you do something like fine art through a third party, how do you document that or something like that?
Well, the first thing that you can do is think about that the hours per credit. So if you can start tracking the hours and find out if it's going to be a full credit or a part credit. Are you talking about dance or?
So like if you went to the art museum to take like high school level fine art classes,
then each time that they go, it would count as a one session, unless it's several hours. Like if they're going for a 3-hour, then it counts for 3 sessions. If they're doing homework or artwork at home as part of their homework assignment, it counts. It also counts if they're reading books about artists or doing research about artists, or you know what I mean? So there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of develop their course. I also, when my kids were doing artwork outside, we would often, I'm like, oh, you're not gonna quite get to the full 180 credits just with that class. So let's sit down, let's go to the library, we're gonna get some books on famous artists, we're gonna get this. You can even watch some documentaries and things and add that too. And then homeschooling high school is a lot of tracking, okay? I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Oh, Debbie.
Debbie. So Debbie she actually just brought, one thing I used to do for my own sanity, because we all know we forget everything, right? And I'm certainly not going to remember, not only in 2 months, let alone in 2 years, what we did when they were freshmen. I documented. So I would say, okay, this is this year we're studying fine art, right? This is our art class. I would document every book they read, every documentary we saw, the hands-on classes they did, the projects we did at home, so that I was able to make sure that, okay, I can support this when I go meet with my evaluator. I can support that we had a half credit or a full credit by what we did. I never turned any of that information in when they applied to college. I mean, that was just for our annual evaluations, and then when we applied through the diploma program, right, to support it. But it's such a good tool for us. Now, that being said, maybe you're only taking a gym class is a great example. If your kid doesn't play a sport, maybe they're only doing a gym class at a co-op 1 hour a week for 30 weeks. You can add those 30-week sessions up for 4 years to make it a full PE credit. But again, it's the tracking. Yes?
I just want to clarify to make sure that I'm understanding the credits and the hours and all of that.
Yes.
So 1 full credit is basically a whole entire course, which is 180 hours spent on that course, or half is 90 hours. So
Exactly.
It's like credit hours add up to that 1 full credit.
Right.
Not minutes, hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's just easier because the math for 60 minutes times 108. I was an English major when I went to college, so we're going to just give myself a
That's why I'm like, I
caveat.
have to talk this out
The
loud.
math is just not a good thing for me. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions on the base? Yes.
So what does gym fall under when you
Physical education. So within the state, a student is required to have at least one
So
credit.
that had
in
nothing
physical.
to do with the college?
No.
requirements that
This
you
is
showed.
just your
This is just
state planning. Yeah.
to graduate high school.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep. I'm sorry if I confused that. Okay, so a teacher recommendation. This is simple for public school kids, but it can be challenging for homeschool kids, correct? You need to, and this is one thing where I always say you need to develop those good relationships with your, the people who teach your kids in a co-op class, or their art teacher, their music teacher, whomever, if they have a private tutor, but so that they're able to have a third-party recommendation. Colleges do not accept a recommendation from mom or dad, okay? Yes?
To know their family.
Unless they're, like, their music teacher.
My mother is a teacher, so she
But does she teach them as their primary teacher?
has a friend.
It's gonna be, it'll be a problem. Yes?
What if it's something like a youth group leader through your church or?
I was gonna say that. The other alternatives that I find, like if your kids haven't been taking classes outside of the home, your churches can be another resource. Scout leaders. Yes.
Also evaluators.
Yes.
I'm an evaluator and I do that for many of my high school clients.
Right, and that's what I was gonna say. But it just cannot be anybody in the family. Okay, yes.
So we made great use of dual enrollment when my kids were older, and
I'm gonna be talking about that.
yeah. Well, but the point for that is a lot of times a teacher recommendation written from 11th or 12th grade is a little bit more present, and your recommender should be somebody who has spent quite a bit of time with your kid. The longer the time, so they're just looking, I think, for does this person really know what's going on with this kid?
And it's also to address, so the recommendation is not just addressing like performance per se. It is also addressing the character, the maturity of the student. As I'm sure all of you have heard, there is a huge learning curve, right? In going from the homeschool or even public school setting where the assignments for the next day are written on the blackboard every day, or you know what I mean, that they're having that information or it's showing up in their Canvas on their computer settings, where they're gonna have to start planning out, using a syllabi, planning out longer projects, pacing like, oh, okay, well the project's due this day, but that means I have to have my final draft done at this point, and my research done at this point, and my topic, right? So there's a whole lot that they're gonna have to work with. Students need to have the maturity and the preparation to be able to be successful when they're moving to the next level. And if someone who has spent time can speak to that, right? Can speak to the quality, or is it someone that just seems, you know, they're not showing up or fulfilling their responsibility. They're doing, you know what I mean? Like they're gonna say, I think this kid might not be ready. Well, actually, usually what happens is they'll refuse to write a recommendation for your child. People don't like to put bad things out there. But so having recommendations done is meaning that there are people out there, professionals who are willing to speak to the credit of your child's ability and maturity to be able to move up to the next level and be successful. Yes.
I just wanted to add that I think if you have an older kid who has a part-time job, their boss would
Yes.
be a great one.
Yes. Although I will say there are some schools that totally like well, the boss can be a second recommendation, but as a primary, they want someone that's going to speak to their academic ability.
Don't most
and
schools,
successful.
do they still look for 2 or 3? I remember applying and they always had to give 3. But
It's not free any. I mean, there are a few that are really elite programs.
Some are optional. Some will say, give us 1 or 2.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then
it's-
if you have more,
Okay.
that way,
Exactly.
if you don't have anybody that lines up.
And
then
a
you can
coach,
add one.
like a coach can be, you know, so like I'll have students that will be applying at Cedar Crest that I'll get like 1 academic, 1 from a coach, 1 from a pastor or youth leader, right? So that they kind of have the diversity that they're showing, but we don't mandate that we have to have more than 1,
Okay.
okay? All right, so this is the beautiful topic to talk about, and thank you, COVID. Because since COVID, there was that period of a year and a half where people could not meet in public to take the SAT or ACT. And what colleges finally found out or discovered is that the transcripts and recommendations are far better indicators of the type of student someone is than how they perform on a random stressful test situation, right? So, many schools have gone optional with the SAT and ACT. However, there are still programs that do require it. So that, I will say, I know almost every school I know of, they still are requiring the SAT for their engineering students. Okay, math majors. It's a lot more lax on the humanities and social sciences side. Very few are requiring it. Some of the STEM programs, while it's not mandatory, maybe it is recommended for, like our forensics program. We've got top 8 in the country, right? Unbelievable. They recommend it if you want to go into the forensics honors program early, all right, before you've done any coursework. But it is not mandatory. And I think this, I know for many, many students, this is a huge boon to not have to stress. But I say this in that you as parents, you need to be taught, you should be starting to have your conversation with kids, with your children about what they want to study, what their interests are, starting freshman, sophomore year, because I'm telling you, it's gonna change. It's gonna fluctuate, but letting them learn about it. I always feel something that's really important is to have what I made a 1-credit course that went throughout the 4 years, which was called Career Exploration. Because you have this idea, okay, let's find somebody who does this. Let's research online. Let's see, what is the salary? What is the job perspective look like, right? Are there many open jobs in that field? Or, I remember my son for a while wanted to be a museum archivist. I'm like, good luck with that. Why don't we look and see how many jobs there are in that field? Because there's very, very few. So let's see what, when you're looking, how much education is required, what schools provide that, okay? All that stuff you should be starting to talk about, and it's great when they're involved because you're going to get a far less backlash, and they're also going to develop a lot more maturity about what college is all about and how important it is as far as being knowledgeable. You don't want to just show up like it's 13th grade. You want to put some thought into what you're going to study, what you want to do for your living, and give them the grace to change, because how many of us change careers from what we, right? I love doing this at the college open houses, and all the parents are sitting there, oh, well, I'm telling you, she's going to be a nurse, and that's all she's going to do. The kid's like, hey, what, Dad? And, and we sit there, and I always make, because I can see that that's already happening in a lot of homes, and I'm like, all right, I want everybody to raise their hand who went to college, one major, never changed, that's what they're doing now, 30 years later. And I'm telling you, it might be 10 people in a full auditorium, because that's not how life works. So we want to give our kids the grace in that as well, but at the same point, make them part of the process, right? Okay, personal essay. Personal essays are different requirements for most colleges, all right? There are some colleges that have a specific topic that they want you to write your essay on. There are some colleges that want you to use the Common App's main topic that year. I'll explain Common App in a minute. Or ones like us where write an essay on what interests you and what you're passionate about. Let us see a little bit about you. The main goal of the personal essay is to make sure that you are writing at a level in which you can be successful in college. There are, unfortunately, not every student receives the same education. And I will say the majority of my students are public school students that are applying to school. And I can tell you that it's vastly different. There are some that I don't think they've ever learned what punctuation is, or how, like there's, everything's misspelled, so we want to see that someone, before they're investing into college, that they're really at a level that they can be successful, right? Because every college, while I know a lot of people think it's a racket and they're just trying to get numbers, maybe some schools are like that. We are not. We do not want people going into debt and then failing, because for us, that just means we weren't able to give them what they needed. But sometimes kids don't have the base, if you're writing at a 4th grade level, you're gonna struggle when you try any college. So again, that's just the way that we think. We want retention, we want success, so we wanna make sure that they're ready. So you can apply to colleges directly through each college's website. All of them have that opportunity where you upload your things through there. Your student, you're gonna reach out to Mason-Dixon or PA homeschoolers, like if they're, or whatever diploma program you use, and they're gonna upload the transcript from them. It can't come from mom, can't come from the student, it has to come from a third party. That's why, that's part of the issue that a lot of homeschoolers have, is getting, because if you're getting a transcript that mom did, again, that can become problematic because of the different structured rules. The Common App is an application. It's a website that students can sometimes use. It's used very often by schools. They upload all their information at one time and they can send it out to 20 different schools. Okay? I have heard homeschoolers have varied success with that. You have to do it through a diploma program. Unfortunately, that's something you can't do as individuals. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the benefits of dual enrollment. Dual enrollment are courses that your student has taken as a high schooler, but they're college courses at like a community college or a local institution that they have taken. Now, there used to be the huge push, used to be AP classes. This is still kind of a push. A lot of high schools will try to push this. The problem with AP classes are they are a tremendous amount of busy work, I would say. It's more, there is a lot more work possibly than like a traditional course. However, it doesn't mean that it is that much higher levels of instruction, okay? And the student has to get a 4 or a 5 on the AP exam at the end. So if you don't have a good test taker, maybe not the best, but they don't necessarily, all colleges will not give them college credit for that course. Or they'll give them an elective credit, but they'll make them retake the class of whatever it is at their institution because they're concerned about the level. Dual enrollment classes, they count as both high school and college credit. Most students need a grade of a C or higher, okay, for them to get for the credit to be transferred. It shows the student's ability to be successful with college level material. It gives them a greater advantage of working in actual labs, right, and doing things. A lot of the AP courses, homeschoolers have to take online, so they're not getting the access to the facilities, the physical facilities. The transcript becomes proof of the courses to transfer in outside of the high school diploma. So if you are someone that's thinking, I'm not going to use a diploma program, this will work for the other states. Because there are some other states where you don't have to use a high school diploma program. And then it offers your student the opportunity to start, they're going to possibly finish their bachelor's degree sooner and even be able to take credits at a master's level earlier and while they're still under their initial scholarships, okay? I'm going to move forward because I don't want to run over time. If anybody has questions, I have business cards and we can go over stuff at another time? Okay. So, oh, this was a new thing I fought for. We did not have dual enrollment. Well, they had it. It was like $700 a credit. Who's going to pay for that? So we now are at $150 a credit, which is very comparable to most community colleges. Okay. As I mentioned before, why is the junior year GPA so important? This is the one that all merit scholarships are based off of. Merit scholarships are something we want for our students because it is free money. We like free money when we're putting our kids through school, right? At any chance we can get it. So I want to show you just a little bit about how these merit scholarships. Sorry, I just grabbed this slide from another presentation. We're focusing on the ones on the left. So, merit scholarships for my school run between $21,000 and $25,000 a year. That means that every student that's accepted, even if you're a C plus student, B minus student, you're still getting at least $21,000 a year in merit scholarship. The increase has to do with the better your GPA is, the more money that you're going to get in this free money. But this can be a huge difference maker for your kids. Private schools, private colleges offer far more in merit scholarships than you're going to find at state schools and community colleges, all right? State schools and community colleges are they're funded by the state and the Fed at this point. Not sure how that's going to work out, but they're pretty much like the prices out there, that's what it is, okay? Private schools are where you want to go looking and see about merit scholarships. Now, the reason I just want to take a second here and talk. There used to be the misconception, and even when my kids went to school, my daughter actually wanted to go here. This is my alma mater, it's in our town. It is an all-women's institution. The students are a little more serious. It's not a party school, which is something she wanted to avoid because when she was younger, she had absolutely no tolerance for people that were she was quite unpleasant about that. So she just kind of said to me, this is where I want to go. This is where I'm going to fit in. I'm going to be successful here. And I kind of looked at her, I was like, baby, mommy cannot afford that. I had just gotten divorced. There was one income and we didn't have it. So I did not know about merit scholarships and secondary programs. So I told her, go to community college for 2 years and then you're going to transfer to the closest state school. She refused to live there because of those reasons where she didn't want to choke out her roommate, and I didn't want to bail her out. So we decided, all right, you'll commute, you know the environment, you know what's good for you, and it was less expensive than the base rate at the private institution. However, she had a 3.9 GPA from high school. She was an excellent student. So she would have had the $25,000 a year in merit scholarship. Free money I didn't know about. Then there's a second program that we have at Cedar Crest, and you have to look at your other schools and see if they have anything. We have a state tuition access rate. So because for us, if a student has a 3.25 or higher, they get this second program on top of. So if we subtract that 25,000 and there is any gap more than the 15,001, well, actually, this year it's cheaper at Penn State. It's 14,447 is the average. She would only have paid what Penn State was. So when you did those calculations, I do it for current students now that are like, okay, maybe I'll go to community college and I'll come here. If you qualify for something like this, that actually would bring the tuition down another $8,000. So she would have had a $32,000 a year in tuition. It would have been cheaper for her to do 4 years at Cedar Crest than it was for her to do the 2 years at the community college and 2 years at the. So don't believe that it's always cheaper. Yes?
So are all these examples just
GPA, yep.
There's no like financial qualification?
No. So this is like, and that's what's so good because all the other forms of financial aid are based off of income, family income. This is based off of grades and how well they done. Now these are specific for Cedar Crest, but almost every other school out there has something of this nature. It's different at every school, so that's where it does become part of your research. But if I had done my adequate research, she would have saved money and been much closer in town if I had looked into that, yes.
This is a stupid question, but who do you contact at the schools to do this research?
A lot of it, you just get on the computers. The computers usually have them, or you can reach out to the admissions office or to I would say reach out to admissions because financial aid is doing a whole lot of other things, but reach out to admissions and what are your basic merit scholarships and the GPA requirements? Do you have any secondary programs? Okay, but this is, so you don't make mistakes. So like I do have number of students that we crunch the numbers. Bucks County Community College costs more. The reason it costs more, those big merit scholarships and the STAR program are only for first year students. Look at a school, ask them as well, what are your transfer scholarships? Not just the first year, what are your transfer? I know for us, we're at 21 to 25 for first year scholarships, and transfer scholarships drop down to 16, and there's none of this. So that's where the difference is, yes.
So when you say first year, does that then carry over for the 4 years that they're
Yep.
there? Okay.
Yep. But it's only for first year students, I should say, yeah. And that does not, anything that any dual enrollment credits, they can come in. One of my students right now, she came into Cedar Crest, she was a Fireside kid, and she had gotten her RN degree, associate degree as a high schooler, came into Cedar. She's now finished working on her master's. Because she was able to finish, she came in with so many credits. So she still was eligible for these programs. It's just any coursework that a student takes after they graduate from high school puts them in the position of then becoming a transfer student. Okay? So that's something to, keep that in mind as well when you're doing your planning. I just want to I have to try because I'm running out of time here and I don't want to get in trouble. I was already warned.
Could you just repeat that last sentence about?
So any classes at colleges or trade schools that a student takes after they have officially graduated from high school is not considered dual enrollment. So if they take classes after, then they're considered a transfer student when they go to apply for colleges. Okay? Now, and that's something to consider because then you're losing all those first year scholarship opportunities just because they wanted to take a, computer graphic design class or something for fun while they were figuring out what they wanted to do. They're going to end up locking themselves out of tens of thousands of dollars. Okay. Comparing schools, more than just price. This, I just used our information because it's easy, but these are the things that you need to be thinking about. The location, how long it's been in operation, and is it accredited? We've all, I'm sure, heard about those schools that weren't accredited and people who wasted a lot of money and then couldn't transfer any of their credits anywhere else and just lost out and had to start over. What's the campus like? What's the faculty? Student to faculty ratio is huge. I did not start at Cedar Crest. I started at a very large state school in Philadelphia on Broad Street. I was a recruited athlete. I just went where I was recruited. My freshman psychology class had over 400 people in it. I don't know what the guy looked like because I never woke up early enough to get into the auditorium at 8:30. So I was shoved off into another classroom with a speaker back in the day. So you have to know what type of learner your child is. Are they going to be successful? I will be honest, even as a public school kid, there were so many more fun distractions to do than study for a statistics test. going to a school that large. That was not the best environment for me. But you need to know where do you think your student, are they going to do better in smaller classes, right? Average class size of 15, average lab of 12. Are they going to like that interaction? I know most homeschoolers are used to having conversations with their teachers and being able to reach them and clarify things. That is a big struggle if they go to a huge school, because suddenly they're not able to get what they need. And they get very frustrated. This is coming from my own 2 children. Activities, what kind of clubs and activities do they have? Do they have athletics? How many majors? Is there an honors program, right? You want to find out about these things to see where your kid's going to fit. Okay, you want to take a campus tour. Marketing people can be evil geniuses. They can make anything look lovely, right, on a website. You have to get there. You have to see the vibe. You have to meet the students. You want to think about urban, suburban, rural. I have a lot of students, like we always laugh in because Philly's one of my territories, and the Philadelphia students, like, they'll come and visit, but they'll say, I'm so glad you told us to go visit other schools, because, you know, they went to some school that, like, there were cows everywhere. There wasn't even a store. Like, you know, if you grow up in a city, that's too much of a culture shock for you to be comfortable with, especially if you don't have a car. So you want to think about what is your student going to, and vice versa, kids that live in a rural setting going into Washington, D.C. and being blown away because there's just too much going on and it becomes overwhelming. You want to think about the parking and vehicle rules. There are a lot of schools that do not let freshmen bring cars. There are a lot that charge insane amounts for parking. You want to find out what those rules are, because that can influence what you do. Guaranteed student housing for all 4 years. This did not used to be such a problem until the huge increases in rental prices. Right now, friends of mine have a church down in Westchester, and they have 14 juniors and seniors that are homeless living in their church because they could not find affordable housing, where rents that used to be like a 2-person apartment used to be $12,000 a month, or $1,200 a month. I'm sorry, I misspoke. And it's now up to $2,000 a month, and they can't afford it. So these are things you want to make sure there's guaranteed housing for your kid all 4 years, because no one wants to deal with having to transfer because of housing, right? And deal with all that. Okay. You want to also look into, and this is when you're getting down to the nitty gritty, their junior and senior year. You want to look into the career outcomes for both the major and for the school. Not all schools do a great job with internship placement, independent research opportunities, things like that. You want to look into that, because those things are very critical today. You can't just be your GPA anymore, all right? If you have a daughter, you definitely can't be just a GPA anymore. While so many fields are open to women, there is still a lot of gender discrimination in those first jobs out of college. U.S. News and World Report just ran something 2 years ago. 2 times out of 3, same GPA, same major, jobs are given to guys. So we know our girls have worked just as hard. That should not be that skewed. So they need to have an internship of some type. They need to have maybe done independent research where they could have been published or presenting at conferences or doing something more, right? Having those projects that are showing that they're capable of more than just reading a book and taking a test. I just do this on, you want to make sure that the school you're looking into actually offers the support that your child might be pursuing. We've had that several times where people literally come up to campus and they're like, you don't have equestrian? And I was like, no, we don't, sorry. Like, they just an assumption that everyone has. So you want to check into those things, right? Making sure. You wanna look at the types of clubs and organizations. I'm just gonna fly through this because I wanna give time for questions. And then you also do want to look at schools that have the 4-year guarantee. This, you would think, should be a given, that a student is gonna be able to go for the 4 years and get all the classes that they need in the 4 years. Unfortunately, it isn't always the case. What can happen is, like, some classes are only offered every other spring or here and there, but it's mandatory for their graduation. The larger the school, the less likely they are to accommodate a independent study to make sure the student can get that one course that they need and manage it in the timeline without having to go an extra year. Okay, and that's really important. You want to also consider the 4-year guarantee, that they're going to be up front with you about what happens when you change majors. You can sometimes change a major and it won't be a problem, and you can still graduate in 4 years. That can happen, especially the earlier you are. But there are some majors, you know, like if you're a nurse, you are a dance major and you want to become a nursing major, you're going to have to go extra time. You need to have a school that's going to be upfront with you about how that all works and how it can be accommodated. And maybe summer classes can be taken and other things can be done, but they need to be a school that's going to work within that 4 years. It benefits a school to keep your kid there an extra year. It's a lot of money. So you need to be the one that's more proactive. You cannot just trust their academic advisors. You have to be involved with it. My son is a case in point. He was a history major, but he was an honor student, and at his college, they put him in honor statistics. It's like, Tyler, you're not good at math. Why are you going to take an Excel? No, the advisor, well, it was because they were trying to get the course to run, because they needed to have a certain number of students in order to run the course. Luckily, we tried to talk him out of it, but he was able to take it again in the summer because he didn't do well with the accelerated course because it was a challenging topic for him. So you can't just assume that you're going to always have, or an academic advisor is just thinking about your student. They also have restrictions put on them from up above to fill classes. Okay. I'm just going to throw this out there and then I'm going to finish this up for questions. One thing you also want to check on extra things that the school your kid picks is possibly offering. We have something way cool called Software Expedition. We had a former president that believed that it shouldn't just be wealthy children who get study abroad experiences. So she created a fund with the alumni. They have a huge endowment. So every student has an opportunity during spring break of their sophomore year to go on a fully funded trip abroad. It's usually 10 to 12 days, depending on where the flight times of where they go. But they just actually got back from Lisbon a week ago. They've done Dublin, Marrakesh, Morocco, London, Athens, Rome, Rio. They've been everywhere a different year. They're going with their class. The only cost of the student is a passport. So that's a really cool opportunity. Most schools don't have something like that. There are other schools that have these great co-op programs where the student can actually do their internship and it's paid. These are the kind of things that you want to go out and look and make sure for your student, these might be really life-changing opportunities for them, right? To be able to have these experiences. So those are something else. I'm going to skip. Okay, I really am a strong believer in liberal arts education, but it's not for everyone, but if you want to take a picture of it, you can. I'm going to go through it quickly. I'm a huge believer in women's colleges, but again, we can talk on that at a different time. And then just here's my contact info. If anybody has questions, please feel free to reach out. I can email you. I can get back to you or at least redirect you to places. Half the year I'm usually living in a hotel because I'm doing recruiting travel, so just give me a couple days for a response because I might not get there. But any questions?
How do you know what counts for 7th and 8th grade that can be used for high school credit?
So the best way for you to find out is to just look, go to either the Pennsylvania Homeschooler or go to the Mason-Dixon and pull up what they have. They have lists of requirements, because there are some things like, in Pennsylvania, every student is supposed to take at least a half credit of government. Or, you know, like there's different things that you have to have. So you can look at their list that they have, and you can use that just as a guide with that little transcript that I got. Yes?
But if they take it that early, can it count towards high school? Or have
So,
to take
okay, so things like that, extra things can count. Half credit classes, things like that can count. The only thing that you can't count is like, you can't, even if they take a high school level English as a 7th or 8th grader, they still have to take another English credit. So you still have to take 4. Same thing with the math, same thing with the science. So they can take high school level courses earlier, but they still have to take the required number in high school. But there are some courses that they have to mandatorily take, right? They have to have an algebra in the state of Pennsylvania. They have to have a biology. So if they take it early, you can give them, they can get the credit for it, but you still have to have 3, then maybe they take anatomy, kinesiology, or environmental science, or whatever as extra things
You
later.
would check off one box, but you still need 3, but
Yes.
at least it can be the 3 you decide.
Exactly, exactly. And sometimes that works well because of the placement. Maybe you have an older student that's doing the class, your student is, 2 years younger, but you just want to get it all over at one time. It works, it's a really good way to do that for high schoolers.